Okay, so this is an attempt to show the reassembly of the Ikea Riggad lamp. And following the YouTube video of the disassembly of the original Riggad, I follow those instructions and I'm lying the Riggad on its side, and it was quite tricky to take apart just from those photos. I'm going to attempt to reassemble it in a way that shows you after the repair that I made that makes a little more sense. In any case, the most critical part which needs to be repaired in the Riggad lamp is the LED. And the LED is simply a CREE high-powered LED that's underneath the screw that I resoldered and used a little bit of thermal paste to put into place with these two screws. After I soldered it, cracked it off using a small flathead screwdriver, and then with some paste put it back after I resoldered the LED. Now the board that it was connected to is just sitting here on top of the heatsink. The LED replacement can be purchased from Mouser Electronics, M-O-U-S-E-R, and this is an example of the LED. I'm going to try to see if I can focus in on that. Okay, there it is. So you can see that this particular LED is a CREE 1304. There are different versions with different voltages, but the important thing is that you need the 18-volt version for the Riggad lamp. Is a CREE 1304. There are different versions with different voltages, but the important thing is that you need the 18-volt version for the Riggad lamp. Okay, so the reassembly is actually a little bit tricky. I'll try to explain it here. So if you actually look for the lamp itself, it's covered by a light diffuser, which is this piece here, and this fits underneath these. And we just have to pry it off and then put it back just through also a little bit of bending force, and that's it. So now the LED, which I resoldered and put in there, is now covered by the diffuser. Now this whole device has to be put together in a particular order, which confused me at first, but now it makes a lot of sense. So there are a few pieces that I have to repair. Note that of this board, the power from the base is soldered to these 2 points. Okay, and you'll see that of these 2 points, one is a plus 19 or 18 volt power source, and the other is a ground. So that's the ground, and that's the plus 18 volts. For the LED component, that's soldered into these 2 locations of ground and also a plus 18 volts. So just to show you on this side of the board, it's also plus ground, or the LED, the positive part of the LED, and also the ground. So this broke off when I was handling it. I'm going to have to resolder that together. Now, eventually, once this is soldered back on, it has to be, there's another part that needs to be also soldered before you reassemble it. And that's where this part of the Riggad gets a little bit tricky. So the Riggad exterior part of the cabling has to fit in through these 2 holes. So first of all, you have to reassemble the lamp somewhat and put in, and you can see that this is just the hood of the lamp, and this is the circuit board. So I'm putting the circuit board a little bit in the lamp first, Okay, and there's a little a ring back here that tells you the orientation of the lamp. And there's a hole on the lamp cover, and there's a hole where the wire power goes into the lamp itself. This is a real pain in terms of repair and LED replacement. I think they expected the LED to last the life of the lamp, but that wasn't the case at all for most of us. Okay, so then, okay, no, I should also note that all of the work that you're going to be doing on the lamp is with the power off. Okay, so this is more or less lined up. Okay, and from here, once that's lined up, you can see the circuit board and the heatsink are more or less lined up. There are two screws here and here that tighten the heatsink to the overall casing, and now is the time to do that. I think that would be okay to do that. But of course, the tricky part is everything has to be soldered to this board through this hole. In terms of the power comes through the hole like this and fits in as such. Okay, and then there's a set screw in here, which I can point the camera over to look at the set screw, and that will tighten into. Okay. And once that's set and everything is set up properly, then you can finish your last bit of soldering. Oh, looks like okay, yeah, so these will have to be soldered below. And then this piece fits on top and sets the board on top of the upper ring, holds it in place, and then finally you put in the on-off switch, which has a spring somewhere around here to assemble the final thing together. So we'll see if I can do this and take some pictures along the way. So something about soldering technique that is really helpful is, my soldering technique isn't the greatest, but I have a couple of techniques that help me out, at least. Here I'm using a contact cleaner pen that has some flux solution in it that allows me to put a little bit of flux fluid, which helps to really dissolve and move the solder along nicely. Otherwise, you can just end up with a clump of solder that just doesn't move. And unfortunately, this pen was from now defunct Radio Shack, which was just an awesome store. Unfortunately, has been subsumed by Amazon et al. Stores online. So a little bit of flux cleaner to clean the soldering tip, which is also just a Radio Shack soldering iron. And I'm just soldering the tip of this just soldering the tip of this to get a nice potential contact. Okay, because I want to push it through that hole. And it's a little bit on the long side, so I'm going to trim it down since this is the plus volt lead. Okay, and then now add some more flux to this tip. And I'm going to try to push it through the bottom of this the board, which is admittedly going to be a little tricky. Something that would be nice to have would be a clip, which I do have here, but it's not ideal. Okay, so I'm going to use this clip just to hold on to this board, see if I can hold it in position. Okay, I don't really have a good place to put this board. Okay, so now I want to try to solder this into that hole. This is tough. There's not a lot of reach here. So I may have to cut this video as I find an ideal way to solder this in position. Since I don't have a lot of slack on these wires, I'm going to screw in the heatsink to the lamp board. See if we can get that into place. Okay, so these are the remaining screws that I had to reassemble. And I believe the circuit board holder requires 2 screws, and I believe it's this one and this one that has some plastic in it. You can see that they have some plastic residue in them, so they, I think, belong to the circuit board. So I'm going to bring that aside. And then this screw with a pointed end, and this screw I think fits to hold the heatsink in place. I'm not positive, but I'm going to give it a try. So we're going to push this up to the top. And it looks like it'll fit. This is not an ideal fit. It's held in there by a little bit of friction. You can tell that it's not actually threaded in any particularly nice way. Okay, so got that screw in there. And that doesn't really seem to hold it tight in place. I really am not sure what this screw is doing. And then I've got another screw here. I'm going to put it in over here. And this is much tighter fit. Again, you know, it's not a nice design because it's not really threaded or put in there in any particularly intelligent way. And so now the screw is nearly at the bottom, holding everything in place so that the heatsink does not fall down. Could be a little tighter. Okay, this one is freely floating. This screw is not really holding the heatsink in place. I don't know if I just mucked up this mechanism. Now it's loose, but I may need to find a larger screw to hold this in place. But yeah, pretty disappointed at this design. I don't think these other screws that were meant for having some plastic are meant for that location. But it is what it is. Okay, it doesn't look like it's actually going to move, so we're going to just bite the bullet and accept that is the design. Pretty poorly designed. In the future, I may have to figure out another way to hold it in place better. Okay, so now on to the soldering. Quite difficult. The soldering job had a little bit of flux. Okay, so I'm going to retin my soldering lamp. Okay, so I'm going to try to solder this wire to that LED position or pin. So clean my soldering tip. Okay, now I've re-tinned my soldering tip, and let's see if I can, whoops, looks like I burnt the board just a little bit. Let's see if I can get my tip in there. Okay, so I got that. My God, I think I've got it. I've done it. It's not pretty. A couple things I don't like about what I did, which is the wire is stuck there, but it's not exactly through the hole on the other side. It's held in just by a solid solder bulb. So I don't think it's going to come off. I think it's adequate. I don't think I'm going to create any shorts with it. So we'll just leave it be for now. Now the key is to solder the power wires to these two contact positions here and here. I'm going to do that next. Okay, so I'll just have a clamp to hold on to this, just steady it. Some way or fashion. Okay. Okay, black is usually ground, and the white is usually power. The light colored or the red is usually power. So we'll do the ground first. A little bit of fresh solder on the tip of my soldering tip. Again, that's glued in there. I think it's pretty solid. It's not pretty, but I think it'll get the job done. And the same thing with this this power here. I'd like to push through the hole, but I don't know if I will be able to do that. So we're going to try this again here. So it got pretty hot. It looks like it solidly grabbed the tip of that wire, so we'll test it and see if it's adequate for powering the lamp. I think it will be. Okay, so let's open that up. At this point, I'm going to plug the lamp back in, and if there are no shocks, no shorts, I'll put everything together. Okay, at this point, you turn on the lamp on by pushing this button, and it looks like, yep, we have illumination from the bottom of the lamp. It has been repaired. And you push it again, turns it off. Perfect. So it seems to be working so far. All right. So now, it's the other part of the repair. Let's see if we can do that. So first, unplug the end. Now, I have to put this thing down. So with this board out, this circuit board needs to be clamped to it. And the circuit board looks like it was sitting as such. Okay, so So put in the screws by fingers first, just to feel it, and I don't want to destroy any threads or create any new threads, because I want the screw to go in relatively straight. So I'm just going to feel it, try to straighten it out by hand first. Okay, and then maybe readjust it with the screwdriver as I'm looking at least 90 degrees on each side, so that at least the screw is going in straight at first before I fully tighten it. Same thing with the screw on the other side. I don't know if you can see that right there. Put in this one by hand first. Okay, it's not really staying in there. So it seems to be screwing in pretty well. I don't want to over tighten it because it is a piece of plastic and it is a fairly hard screw. And same thing here, I'm going to screw this one in. It's hard at the very end, but at the very end I don't want to over tighten it. Just hold it right in place. Okay, so the button can be accessed. Alright, now everything is pretty much put in. Now I have to tighten, in order to reassemble this, the Riggad has to be inserted into the place before you put in the set screw, which you can see at the bottom, down there. Okay, and the set screw is just right in the middle. The set screw, I believe it's this large screw. So we're going to try to put in the set screw. All at once. Again, I don't want to tighten too quickly or too fast. I want to feel all the threads. Okay, so this one you can tighten a little tighter. That set screw it's pretty good. So now the Riggad is now reassembled for the most part. All right. Now to reassemble the top, I'm going to try to line up those 3 holes with the 3 holes of the circuit board without putting too much strain on any of the wiring. And this looks like it would work. Oh, whoops, no. It's not quite right. I have to rotate another few degrees. I think like this. Uh-oh. Did I do it right? I think this plate should be reversed 180 degrees because these 3 screw locations are not exactly lined up with the circuit board, because the circuit board has 3 spots, so I need to rotate this 180 degrees, so that was my mistake. So don't make that mistake yourself. I really don't like to do this too many times because it's possible that we can wear down this plastic, and then this repair wouldn't really be possible too many more times. Okay, so this is fitting okay. And this one too now. So there's an orientation to this plastic piece and the circuit board, and it can fit in 2 ways, through 180 degrees in 2 ways. And the most important thing is that these 3 outer screw holes line up with the cutouts of the circuit board, the 3 cutouts of the circuit board. So the final set screws can be screwed into place. Okay, so that's tight on. Okay, that's tight on. All right, so we're going to test the circuitry one last time. Plugged in the power. Push the button. And the lamp turns on. Fantastic, it's working. Push the button to turn it off. The lamp turns off. Excellent, so it's working again. Unplug the power so we can do the final positioning of everything. So with everything almost set, I'm going to push the circuit board down. Okay, so now the circuit board is in place with this bracket circuit board holder. I don't have another word for it. And I've got 3 screws to put that in place. And I'm going to use these 3 screws to put them in place right now. Okay, here's one of them. Let's see if this fits. Again, I want to go nicely, just using a low twisting torque. So that works pretty well. I'm not going to tighten it until the very end. Here as well. Okay, and finally at the very end here. Okay, now we'll tighten it in place, not too tight, because I think this plastic has been experiencing a lot of heat. And, oh, I might have over-tightened this one, loosened it just a little bit. Seems to be okay. A lot of heat builds up here, and I think that's what caused the failure of the LED. There's space in there for a fan, though the fan won't blow air directly over the fins of the heatsink. I think there's the possibility for upgrading this lamp in the future to have a small miniature silent fan, which would be fun. A fun little project to do to extend the life of this otherwise fairly pretty lamp. All right, so now finally, here's the top piece. And the top piece was just cranked off. You can tell that these are just little clips that fit into these 3 holes of the circuit board holder, and this is the button that pushes down the button on the bottom. And the only thing that gives it a little bit of distance with the spring itself, with the button itself, is the spring, which we're just going to put down here. I'm going to try to line it up with the 3 holes. I think that's it. And I push it down. There. Gives a nice on-off. Okay, so let's put this lamp upright finally. The Riggad lamp, which was actually not a cheap lamp, it was somewhat of a pricey lamp, has a Qi charger on it, a USB port down in the front, and this fairly nice task lamp that turns on and off now perfectly. Yay, I did it. What do you think?
Looks great.
Yeah.